me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. We're fired up to be back today. Took a little hiatus here because of the college baseball season, but now with that wrapping up and Division I regionals starting up today, we're excited to be back here in the studio here at the Baseball Warehouse, and we're joined today by an amazing guest, newly minted Dr. Carmen Sclafani. So a little bit of background, and then I'll let Nooch get into his story here. Carmen and I played together at Rutgers. He grew up in Toms River. Went through that system, went to Brick High School to finish up his high school career, graduated from Rutgers, just recently graduated with his doctorate of physical therapy from Columbia, highly esteemed on the baseball field, highly esteemed on the football field back in the day, and now highly esteemed in the physical therapy field. So we're excited to have Carmen joining us today, and Nooch, I can't thank you enough for being here.
I love you. When you reached out to get me on this, I, of course, was no brainer, made it work. I'm excited to chop it up with you because we got a lot to talk, or we can talk for hours and hours and hours. We're trying to fit this all in now, but I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man, and thanks again for joining us. So, I guess at the top of the show here, just tell us your story. Obviously, a Toms River guy, ended up at Brick High School, thought you were going to go to college to play quarterback, and then ended up playing baseball at Rutgers. So, take us through that, just your development and your growth through the athletics realm.
Oh yeah. Like Eric said, I grew up in Toms River. I'm from Toms River. I played both football and baseball at Toms River North. Both sports were my passion. I loved both of them. I ended up transferring after an awesome experience playing baseball and football at Toms River North to Brick Township. While I was at North, we won our short conference tournament. We won the Ocean County tournament with actually a bunch of guys on that team or a couple guys on that team that ended up coming to Rutgers to play baseball. But I transferred to Brick to actually to focus on football. It paid off. We won a state championship when I was a junior at Brick Township. And like Eric said, I then had the goal to play college football. I was lucky enough to earn a couple scholarship offers, and I was on my way to Sacred Heart University to play quarterback, surprisingly, if you guys could see me. This wouldn't be the first position you'd guess. What then unfolded after that, it kind of just landed in my lap, and I'm a big believer in like what's meant to be is meant to be. Coach Joe Laterio, who was the head Rutgers baseball coach at the time, the guy that we both played for, reached out to my high school coach looking for an infielder. And this is where like my world kind of got flipped upside down. That's the way I kind of describe it. Like I said, I was on my way to play football, and this opportunity to play baseball just at Rutgers, the key there, at Rutgers, just fell into my lap. And a little bit about me, something that, me and Eric both are we're very similar in this way because Scarlet runs in our blood. My dad played football at Rutgers, and I grew up going to all their football games, their basketball games, watching Quincy Doobie, come to baseball games, watching Todd Frazier. And the way I like to describe it is if Rutgers offered me to play checkers or chess, I would have committed to Rutgers. So it was a no-brainer. Even though I was going to play football, I was like, you know what? I would die to play baseball at Rutgers. And so it was a no-brainer. I committed a couple weeks after Coach Laterio offered me, and the rest was history. The best time of my life at Rutgers. I tell people that like choosing Rutgers over my other options was the best decision I ever made in my life because, like I said, it's in our blood. We grew up here. My whole family went to Rutgers. Your whole family went to Rutgers. It's part of who we are, and it just made the most sense, and it's changed the rest of my life. Honestly, after that, choosing to play baseball at Rutgers and going through the program here and becoming a Scarlet Knight set me up for the rest of my set my path up and my journey up for the rest of my life. Honestly, I don't think I would have been as successful as hopefully I'm becoming in the world of physical therapy and getting into physical therapy school and going to Columbia if it wasn't for Rutgers. He was awesome. He was nice enough to congratulate me on my new degree, but while I'm proud of my Columbia degree, I was just telling someone this earlier today. I could not be more proud of my Rutgers degree, honestly, more than my Columbia degree, which is kind of crazy to say, but the Rutgers experience shaped me and has influenced me forever. And now, honestly, I'm still involved. I do some stuff with academics with some of our athletes at Rutgers. I'll always have my hand in there somehow because it's just part of who I am. You know, we just saw each other a couple weeks ago at an alumni event at one of the baseball games. And actually, let me just throw this in there. So they know that your dad works at Rutgers.
Yes, of course.
Obviously, yeah. Right? JR is a legend at Rutgers. And did I mention my dad played football? Yeah, my dad played football at Rutgers. Yeah, I did. My dad was here when JR was here. So, like, that was just when we went to the alumni event the other night, they got to see each other, which is always fun. So it's just a big, like, family freaking, like, party every time we're here. And so, yeah, so that's that. Now I just graduated. I'm a physical therapist, and I am pursuing physical therapy residency at Temple University. I'll be with their sports medicine team, primarily working with football. And I'm also going to be, I'll have a small role with the Philadelphia Phillies as well. So that's where, a little bit about me. Probably missed some stuff there, but that's the gist of everything. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And how cool is it to say that now, right? Like, you get to say, I'm a physical therapist.
Yeah.
You're, finally, after all these years, finish up all that schooling and stuff and grinded your tail off to get to this point, and now you get to cash in those chips and say, hey, I'm a PT now.
Well, you guys used to bust my chops for studying all the time when they'd go out, they'd go to the bar, go to parties, which I did. But especially towards the tail end of my time at Rutgers, my junior and senior year, I'd be unfortunately having to spend a lot of time in the library and take some parties off and study and put a lot of time and effort into that. But you're right, yeah, it feels really good to know that all that hard work has paid off.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, especially considering the work you put in to earn that, and it's been awesome to see. And if you don't mind me paying you a compliment, I know getting through my master's degree here, especially post-grad where you think college is over, and then suddenly I was thrust into a master's program. So I can remember getting through that master's program and thinking, like, man, when I was a sophomore and Nooch was a senior, he was going up to the Hale Center, going to study hall, and making sure you got all your work done. So, when it hits the fan and you got to get your job done, it was cool to have you as a guy to look up to as I was going through my undergrad career to say, you can manage all of these things at the same time. You can be super successful in the things you want to be successful in. You can go have fun and enjoy that social life. You can go to the weight room and go to the gym, and then you can still hone in on the academics. So I think off the bat, from you telling your story and just looking at how impressive your resume has become, what piece of advice, if any, would you give a kid in high school, maybe someone in our facility that's listening to this, to say, you can check all these things off the list. You have the ability to accomplish everything across the board that you want to if you can figure out how to manage that time or whatever it might be? Well,
first of all, I appreciate that you're the man. You'd be able to accomplish anything you want because we were raised similarly, right? We know our dads, right? So it's kind of been ingrained in us, that hard work mentality. But yeah, you ask a good question. Honestly, in those late hours at Alexander Library or at the Hale Center or at the RAC, what I would think about, and this goes back to the idea of like delayed gratification, right?
100%.
We're college kids, right? We want to have fun now and be happy now and want everything now, right? I would sit there and tell myself, one day this is going to pay off, right? It's not now. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be next year, but it will pay off. And as an athlete, we see that, right? It was very understandable for us. You're in the weight room one day. It takes months and months and months of hard work to become what you want physically. As a pitcher, it takes months and months of work to develop and work on your stuff. So it's that idea. So you're saying, like, what advice? The idea, coming to terms with the idea of like delayed gratification, knowing that if you work hard now, that in the long run, it will pay off. And you just kind of have to, it's tough because you don't get any gratification in the moment. You just have to hope and work and work and work and work. And eventually, if you do the right things and you work hard enough, it will pay off. Yeah, I think what I take away from that is just that I've grown really fond recently of the quote, like, you are what you continuously do. You are what you perpetually do. So if you have your sights set on being a Division I athlete,
being a physical therapist, having a 4.0 GPA, whatever those goals might be, you got to continue to grind at them, like you're saying, with that understanding that I can't just do it today. I'm not going to be able to accomplish these long-term goals if I'm hoping that I can work really hard today and then kind of take the day off tomorrow. Yeah. So I definitely appreciate that perspective.
Wait, let me say one thing.
Yeah, of course.
Don't totally. You were there with me some nights in the. There was a bunch of us that were there in the library and at the Hale Center and the rec. So you didn't just all of a sudden figure that out when you were in your master's program. You were with me. We were down in the trenches for some times there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But yeah, it was just, I guess, along similar lines to what we're talking about now. Even years later, after you had graduated your undergrad at Rutgers, and we were kind of in our own roles instead of both hunkering down at midnight at Alex or whatever. Yeah. It was good to have in the back of my mind that I had a guy like you to set an example when I was younger, so I could say, you know what, I know Nooch right now is working 100 different jobs and getting the experience there, and he's still getting his master's degree in Columbia while he's living in the city with all these opportunities to do whatever around him. So, listen, I don't want to pat myself on the back because you're the guest here today, but at the end of the day, definitely appreciative of the role you set and the example that you set for me as I was a younger guy, and the application still prevails today. So. From there, right, you touched a little bit about your academic programs that you have with the athletes at Rutgers, obviously the Ready Mentors program that you started while you were there. Get into that, man. You said you had a couple meetings this week about it. Talk about that program, what it means to you.
So that's my baby. This is good stuff right here, so listen up. So I was a sophomore, and first of all, I just want to say before I get into this, the academic support staff at Rutgers is phenomenal. We've got some great Scarlet Knights working there to help our student athletes, okay? Now, with that said, as a student athlete, and what comes to mind is watching our teammate Kevin Blum, who is an engineer major, leave practice, like run from the field up to the rack to get to his engineering classes, which engineers, I don't know what they do. It's incredible. It's incredibly difficult, incredibly hard, right? With that said, as a STEM, so like your science and your techs and your engineering, your math, that STEM field, for a student athlete to pursue your STEM degree and pursue a career in STEM, it's pretty difficult, right? Because as a student athlete, you have challenges, more challenges than your average student, and then as a STEM student, we like to think, or we think that's pretty difficult, right? You have some other challenges, and then to do that all together is really difficult, and sometimes that's just too tough to do, right? The staff at the staff in college, your academic support, their goal is to make sure you're eligible and make sure you graduate, and that's awesome because they got to make sure that 700 athletes graduate and are eligible to compete because that's why we're here, right? So as a sophomore, myself and about a dozen other student athletes across all different sports and across all different fields of study, all within the STEM field, were kind of didn't really get pushback, but we were kind of a little persuaded away from pursuing those difficult majors and those difficult fields of study. And we didn't like that because we were passionate about what we wanted to pursue academically and professionally. And so we saw that, and we were like, you know what, guys, maybe we can help each other. I know that it's, they don't really want us to do this because it's going to be hard on us and that'll make their job harder, but let's support each other. And so what we came up with was a peer mentoring program where we paired junior and senior student athletes within the STEM field with freshman and sophomore student athletes within similar fields of study. So for example, as a junior and senior, I mentored a guy on the track team that wanted to become a physical therapist and pursue physical therapy. I had a girl on the swimming and diving team who wanted to become an occupational therapist, so I mentored her. So I helped her through her 4 years of school at Rutgers. I helped him through his 4 years of school at Rutgers, overcome some of those additional challenges that came with being a STEM-focused student athlete. And so basically, like I said, the model, it's just a peer mentoring model. We've now had, it's been almost 4 years now, we've had about 8 cohorts go through our program, which is our program's name, it's READY, Rutgers Educational and Athletic Development Initiative. We go by the acronym READY. And each semester we'll have about a total of like 25, 30, sometimes there's been a couple semesters we've had like 35, 40 student athletes in the program, both mentors and mentees. And I'm like so proud of the program because we have kids who have graduated med school. We've had kids go on to graduate school at Harvard. We've had one of our co-founders and mentors went on to complete a Fulbright fellowship in Ghana in Africa, which is one of the most prestigious fellowships you can earn. We have engineers. We have Rutgers student athletes, Rutgers student athlete alumni who are engineers at some of the top engineering companies all across the country. We've got kids in nursing school. We've got kids who are nurses now. And so we've helped our student athletes pursue their passion, even when it was kind of told to them that, it might be too difficult for you. And so it's been very rewarding to see a lot of our family Scarlet Knight athletes go on and be very successful, not only as a student athlete here, but then go on and to pursue their graduate education and pursue jobs in fields that they were passionate about. And so that's actually something, you said, I was telling Eric that I was up on campus this week because we were actually meeting with our career services or our career support office for student athletes, because Ready has always had academic support from our academic office, but now the career services has shown an interest in our program because we've now had 4 or 5 cohorts graduate. So that means we have student athlete alumni out there that went through the Ready program. And so what they want to do is they want to connect those Ready alumni with the current Ready members, which is it helps grow Ready. It helps strengthen our mentoring program, and it helps them with alumni engagement. And so we're going to kill 2 birds with one stone there with this new initiative that they've got going on with the program. So yeah, that's a little bit about, and that's my baby. I'm so passionate about this program. I love helping student athletes that kind of walk the same path that I've walked, and it's just really fulfilling to see, these student athletes graduate, get into the schools they want to, get the jobs that they want to, get the internships that they want to, because, and I'm biased, but I think Rutgers is like one of the best places on earth, and so we've got some studs coming out of this athletic department, and so it's really, really, really fulfilling to see them be successful.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I knew we were gonna get to that at some point in the episode today, but I just remember us coming back from summer ball in Waterloo and getting back to the banks and saying, "Man, this is the best place on earth." Dude. So there's something that's super special about picking a school, picking a athletic department, picking a team where we always talk about here with the guys that get recruited from our facility, like finding the right fit. So it's awesome to see just how intertwined in the community you can become and how much more it can mean to you if you really find that place where you're a good fit. I think the impressive thing to me, or the most impressive thing, because it's all super impressive, is you're able to be so far removed timeline-wise from this program and to see it still running so successfully. Like, how cool is that for you that you can be more hands-off these days and the program has continued without you and the rest of the people that started it up years ago?
That's awesome. What I want to say to that is we have student athletes in the program, in the Ready program, that are just as passionate as helping their fellow student athletes as I was and as my co-founders were. And so it's, like you said, I'm a little more hands-off now. And so I just oversee the program and I kind of just, help guide some of the leadership within the program semester to semester. But we have other student athletes here, and this just goes to show you the caliber of student athlete we recruit and bring to the banks that are that passionate in keeping the program running and helping other student athletes achieve their goals and dreams.
That has to be such a cool feeling for you to see that continue to blossom without being there on campus every day like you were when you founded it. Speaking of those engineering guys, right? Like Blummy was awesome to see him running from practice, and then as I continued after you guys graduated from the program to see guys like Parker Scott and Dan DiGiorgio doing the same thing. Guys like that had huge roles out of the bullpen, guys that were all Big Ten shortstops that found a way to hustle over from class to practice or practice to class and get everything done. I have this line I use all the time where I say, busy is better than boring. So I think we talk about all this time management and what we're able to have our hands in, and it seems to me that, I don't know if there's a formula, if there's a recipe or whatever, but guys or girls that end up being super successful as they go through their careers seem to always be looking to add something additional to their plate instead of this idea, like you might run into with your academics, where it's like, listen, if you're going to play ball, it might be more difficult for you to do this major than this other major. And people that, at least in my eyes, stay successful and continue to grow and become successful after college always seem to be looking for something additional to have on their plate. I know things like, we would always go to the SAC meetings together. We would always go to AIA meetings together. The campus involvement.
Community
service, everything. And I think that's something that, like we're talking about, being involved in the community with how much the school means to you and I, is something that might get overlooked. So, like, to me, people will always think about the social element of college. They think about the athletics. Obviously, nobody second guesses how difficult the college education might be to receive. Talk about some other things that you might have enjoyed while you were in college that you're still into now, being able to involve yourself in a community while you're at school and then after school, what that might look like.
Yeah, no, like specifically at Rutgers, or
just in general, like, how have you been able to, outside of just this Ready program, like, you have your hands in everything. Oh, man. So I see you all over the place. We're talking before the show today about how you're making your rounds all over New Jersey. So what does that mean to you to?
Well, we're Jersey guys, so that's easy for us. You know, this was home for guys like me and you. It is home for guys like me and you.
No doubt.
So we'll never not be involved with the community at Rutgers and around. Like I just mentioned, we were together at a alumni game. We're going to be together at alumni games forever and events like that. But part of this goes back to, like, you know, my family. So my dad's heavily involved with a lot of alumni engagement when it comes to, you know, alumni events, golf outings, watch parties, tailgating experiences, pregame events, postgame parties. And so that's something that I know you want to, and I will always be involved in, just because we love the community so much. And yeah, so like the other day when I was on campus meeting, doing my meetings in regards to my Ready program, because I love everyone here so much, I made my rounds. I went and hung out with the baseball coaches. I hung out with the sports medicine staff. They become family, you know. And at Rutgers, thankfully, you know, there's a lot of turnover at a lot of big time, you know, schools. But at Rutgers, thankfully, like, we like to keep our own here. We like to keep our own home, and whether they go for a little while or they come back. Like, for example, you remember Anthony Miseraco, right? Who was our athletic trainer. Like, your freshman year, my sophomore year.
Yep.
Before Ted came, he's back, and now he's the head of athletic training. So, like, that's what I mean by, like, we keep our own home, we bring him back, and that's something that, you know, you never know. Maybe I'll return as a PT for Rutgers athletics. I'm just saying.
It's an exciting thing to think
about. Or you'll return as a baseball coach.
Yeah, I mean.
So that's just who we are. We're lucky, you know, because we've been brought up in this Rutgers, Rutgers community. It's like a way of life for us. And I don't plan it changing ever anytime soon.
Right, and I think that's, you know, I hate to dig a little bit deeper on the same premise that we had talked about prior, but I think that's what's important to kind of get to the base roots of, is how valuable having that community aspect can be. And then, like, we're talking about all this stuff that you got to grind through and that we got to work hard to find success in life, comes from some type of goal setting or some type of vision where we can sit here and say, you know, I would love to someday down the road be a baseball coach at Rutgers. To have that in the back of my head as I transitioned from a ball player into the coaching world the way I did, to say, you know, how sick would it be to have this goal in front of me for my career, to say I'd love to make it back to the banks and have that role. And then for you to be here today with as much success as you've had, and say, this is what could still be in front of me if we continue to work and we continue to grind and go through this stuff. So that's really where I'm getting at from that perspective and that point of view, is like how all of these things can help you down the line, instead of saying, I'm going to put all my chips in the baseball or whatever sport basket and try to focus on that.
Being involved in so much of,
Right.
And thankfully, as a Big Ten university, as the State University of New Jersey, we have so much to offer here at Rutgers, and there's so much within the athletic department that they offer. Like you said, I remember doing community service with you, going to AIA meetings every Wednesday night or every Tuesday night. We just were involved with so much here. They have so much to offer, and it helps build the community. It helps strengthen the community of athletes that we have at Rutgers. And here's the thing, we're competing against the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Miamis. And so you need that holistic experience here to develop the holistic student athlete, which will go beyond your just 4 years here.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then along the same lines, like these things that you can continue to develop passions for, I guess what set you on the track into the PT field?
Well, so we're both athletes, right? This is a good question. I had to answer this in all my interviews for grad school. So
you got the answer worked out.
There we go. So surprisingly, I was a pitcher in middle school, right? Well, I pitched in middle school. We were in a tournament. They brought me in late in one, late Saturday night game, and I got on the mound for 1 inning, tried throwing as hard as I could, and just pop. I heard my elbow pop. I ended up fracturing a bone in my elbow, and that was my first ever encounter that I had with a physical therapist, because after that I had to do physical therapy. I was distraught. I was like an emotional mess. Like, sports are our lives. I had to stop playing summer baseball. I was out for the football season that coming fall, which was even more devastating for me. So like my world was over. And the PT that I had was actually a ex-college baseball player at Maryland. And he worked at Toms River. Pete McHugh, shout out Pete McHugh. And he handled me with such care, not my physical care, but my emotions. He knew my goals. He knew what I wanted to achieve athletically because he had done it. And so he was there to motivate me and like inspire me and keep my, keep me up, keep me from, getting down in the dumps, and trying to motivate me for that, to get back next season stronger and better and faster than I was, and really help me return not just physically from my injury, but emotionally. And when I came back, that never left. I never forgot what he did for me, not just physically, but emotionally. And I just told myself, or I just felt that like that's what I wanted. He changed my life. Like, if Pete wasn't there, if I went to another physical therapist or had a different experience, who knows what could have happened. He was implanted into my life at a point that I needed him, and he impacted my life forever after that. And I wanted to have that same impact on other athletes, as my career. That's what I feel like God put me on this earth to do, was to help athletes reach their goals and dreams. And if that means helping guide them through some of the valleys of their career, then I'll be that for them, because I had someone there like that for me. And that's what I would want to do for them. And so that was kind of how I got my interest in physical therapy. And then just being an athlete, being in the training room, being in the weight room, playing 2 sports, I got exposed to a lot of that when it came to like performance training and rehab. And it also was something that I was naturally interested in working out. And so that was just became my life. And so all throughout college, that was my goal. It's what I studied. It's what I wanted to pursue. And then I was lucky enough to get into Columbia, and I did that whole thing. It's a 3-year program, and I was actually lucky enough to get a clinical rotation with the Cincinnati Reds while I was in PT school, right? So that's, sports are my niche. I don't know if your viewers know much about physical therapy, but you could be a physical therapist for, pediatric patients, geriatric patients, in hospital settings and outpatient settings, and all different types of settings with all different types of patients. But athletics is my niche, obviously. It's what I'm passionate about. I was an athlete, and so to have that experience in graduate school with the Cincinnati Reds was just perfect for me. It helped shape the rest of my schooling and the rest of the internships that I took. I actually just finished up right before graduation my last clinical internship, which you have to do a bunch of these while you're in grad school. It's like part of your training, with a incredible facility up in North Jersey. They are the best of the best. They're called Resilient Physical Therapy, Resilient Performance Physical Therapy. And I actually trained under a guy by the name of Greg Spatz, who was a strength coach for the Arizona Diamondbacks before he became a physical therapist. So it's just, I've been and he has shaped the way I will practice for the rest of my life, the way I'll treat patients and train patients. And so that whole journey of I hurt myself playing baseball. My PT was a baseball player. I worked at the Reds for a little bit. I trained under this guy who was an ex-Arizona Diamondback, right? And so that's kind of just the way that my PT career has unfolded, and it could not have gone any better. And I couldn't have imagined it going any better than in his. And that kind of landed me the spot that I'm taking now. I'm doing a sports physical therapy residency with Temple University, where I will primarily be with the football team and helping out with some of the Olympic sports. But my primary role will be with football. And then the last 2 months of the year-long program, I will be down in Clearwater, Florida, working with the Phillies at their player development complex. So, yeah, I just went off on a tangent there, but that's the PT trajectory right there.
Listen, as you should, man. We got all the time in the world here to talk, and we should, the more detail, the merrier there. I think the one thing I'd love to hear more about is you kind of just say, yeah, I did this thing with the Reds, and for you, you're a rock star in your field. That might just be nothing, but go into that a little bit. Talk about getting to work with that MLB squad and being out in Arizona and what that was like.
No, you're right. It wasn't nothing. We had to apply for it, right? So as a physical therapy student, you are required to train under physical therapists throughout your 3 years, and we'll call them rotations or clinical affiliations, internships, whatever. You're placed at hospitals or physical therapy clinics or with teams for anywhere from like 10 weeks to 18 weeks at a time. And so I was fortunate enough, I applied to and was selected for this rotation with the Cincinnati Reds. The role was out at their player development complex in Goodyear, Arizona, where I worked under Dr. Eric Gonzalez, he was actually an ex ball player too. He played with the Padres. And so my role was I basically trained as a physical therapist. So I was working as a student physical therapist for their rehab team in Goodyear. And just so you guys get the picture, in pro baseball, anybody that gets injured or requires surgery that requires long-term rehab, so it's like more than 2 weeks. And we know like a lot of our surgeries, like shoulder, elbow surgeries, that's months. Could be up to a year, right? Those guys in every organization, they get sent back to their spring training complex or their player. It's the same thing as their player development complex. And so you have a rehab group there. What I mean by that is you have anywhere from 15 to 20, 25 guys that are part of the organization. They can be with any affiliate. They could be at the player development complex as a rookie. They could be part of the big league team. And if they require long-term rehab, they get sent to this facility, and we, the rehab team, the sports medicine rehab team, work with them every single day. It's intense rehab, right? These guys are pro athletes. They're paid a lot of money. They're very valuable to the organization, so we rehab them every single day. They were long days. Pro sports is no joke. We'd get in there early, and we'd eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner there because we were there all day. And so it was a grind, but it was the best time. It was like one of the best summers of my life. Second to the one we spent in Waterloo, which we should talk about that.
No doubt.
But I learned under some of the best performance physical therapists at the highest level. I got to work with some really great athletes, and I just got exposed to some really high level rehab and medicine, which is what I wanted. Right, I worked really hard in grad school to earn this opportunity, and I got to learn from some of the best and see what it was like to be part of a pro level sports medicine team. And so it's helped. I met so many people last summer. It's helped open a lot of doors. Made a ton of connections, and I learned a lot, which was the most important thing. So it was like a 10-week rotation. I was out there. It was a grind every day, but there were a couple days we went to go watch a couple of the big league games that were at the Diamondbacks. Because I was in Goodyear, and the Diamondbacks are in. Phoenix. I think the stadium's in Phoenix, I think.
Okay.
I don't remember. Yeah, Phoenix. Okay.
Wherever it is.
So we got to go watch a couple games. I went hiking a couple times, which if you guys know me, that's not me, but open-minded guy. It was actually an incredible experience. I went with a couple guys that were part of the staff the first time. I was like, I love this so much. The next weekend I went by myself, which don't go hiking by yourself. It was kind of scary. But so I got to do some of that. So it was a great summer. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. It was awesome. Yeah, and then again, it influenced how I proceeded after that.
Awesome. I think it's really cool to see just how all of the people that come through our lives, whether it's on purpose or by accident, can have an impact on our path and our story. And it's sick to hear you talk about all these guys or whoever along the way that have impacted you and pushed you in a direction that it seems like, I don't think there's a doubt, you really enjoy and you're really passionate about. So that's awesome. I definitely want to talk about that summer in Waterloo.
Yeah.
But as long as we're still on the PT topic, okay. I know as time has gone by, strength training, mobility, physical therapy have all become huge parts of baseball. So the one question I have for you is, like, in a general sense, like, what are a couple of your favorite things that you think are super helpful to young athletes that are coming up? And then what are some of these, like, myths or, like,
okay. All right. I'll give you my 2 cents.
Yeah,
all right.
So exists?
So just a couple things. So first of all, like, right, in all of sports, the strength and conditioning is getting so good that our athletes are getting so strong and so powerful. And so one of the questions that is, like, really popular is, like, why are athletes continuing to get hurt more and more and more? And just so you know, I don't know everything. I just get out of school and I'm still continuing to learn and I want to learn more. But from what I have learned from some of my mentors and the people that have taught me is that we're just getting stronger. These athletes are getting more powerful. They're becoming really, really elite specimens. And so with that power and that strength runs the risk of us getting hurt more, right? And so that's why being able to take care of your body, being able to work out correctly, work out with people that know what they're doing is, like, really, really important. Because if we just get strong and lift and get jacked, which everyone wants to do, is, like, you'll hurt yourself, especially as a baseball player. Right. But with that said, there's the other end of the spectrum that's like, oh, let's not lift weights. We're a baseball player. We shouldn't lift our arms. That's also wrong, because you're an athlete. You still need to be strong. You shouldn't not load, and by load I mean lift weights, right? It's just how you do it, how you go about doing it, right? So there's a happy medium, like there is with everything, right? One other thing that is really I'm passionate about, it's a huge part of baseball rehab and baseball training now, is the early specialization of athletes, right? Because we're seeing a lot of younger and younger baseball athletes get hurt. Like when we were in high school, I remember one of my buddies got Tommy John in high school, and we were all like, "What the heck? Like, he's in high school, he got Tommy John." Because we heard about pros getting Tommy John.
Right.
Now, at some of the places I've worked, I've seen 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds get Tommy John, right? And so I go back to that whole sports specialization thing I just mentioned. We are not seeing, come on, when you were younger, when you were 14, 15, 16, you were going to shoot hoops, you were going to ride your bike, you were playing baseball, you were playing all these different sports, you were screwing around outside with your buddies, playing tackle football, touch football, playing manhunt, running around the yard, running around in your neighborhood, swimming, going to the beach, doing all this different stuff that challenges you physically in so many different ways. Kids don't do that now. Right. And don't even get me off on, they're inside on their iPads,
I mean,
right?
I'd love to hear your perspective on that, because that's a question that comes through a lot of these high school guys is, I play basketball, I play football, I play soccer, I run track. If I want to go be a college athlete, of course, from an early age, I knew that baseball was where I was going to go, but I just loved playing basketball and I had fun running around with my buddies. And even, it's not that long ago that you and I were in high school, that was never a problem then. No. So
it's
don't worry about going on a tangent. Tell me your perspective on that.
So when we see these 10-year-olds that are on 3 different travel teams and they're just playing baseball, their body's getting exposed to the same stresses over and over and over again. And you don't got to be a physical therapist or a doctor or a trainer to tell me that it's bad that a 10-year-old's body or a 12-year-old's body or a 14-year-old who's growing, going through puberty and all these physical changes, to be exposed to the same stresses over and over again. That's not good, right? That can't be good. And what promotes healthy development, and actually healthy development athletically and functionally, is exposure to all different types of stresses, because we're still human and we still need to develop. There's a natural course of development that we go through still through puberty all the way up till you're like in your early 20s until you're done growing, right? And the more diverse the stresses you place on your body, the better the outcome will be physically for you, right? And so if you're just playing baseball, the risk that you run of hurting your arm because you're throwing 12 months out of the year is higher than you or me who were playing football and basketball in addition to baseball growing up, right? Yep, the injuries, there's always a risk for injury. You get hurt playing basketball, get hurt playing football. Of course. But it's different. The risk for certain injuries and the risk for certain injuries will change depending on what you're doing. And so this is now, then the answer is, what do I do? Okay, so what do we do? I want to get recruited, right? I want to go play high level, let's use baseball, right? High level baseball. And all the kids in my high school class or my middle school class are playing baseball 12 months out of the year. What do? They're going to get recruited. I'm not. No. You got to be real too. You got to be good if you want to get recruited. That's at the end of the day. You got to be good, right?
Have to be.
So, from the guys that I've learned from, right, like the guys with the Reds, Greg Spatz, Resilient, some of my other coaches, some of the other PTs, just don't play baseball 12 months out of the year. Go play another sport. Take a couple months off, right? I'm not saying in the off season, before baseball season starts, don't, work with your pitching coach for a couple months. You actually got to do that to prepare yourself for baseball season, to get your body in shape, to get your arm ready to go. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying don't play summer ball. Go play May, go play June, go play on one team. Don't play on 3 teams where you have a game every night and you have to travel all over the country and play 5 games out of 7 days of the week, right? There's and I said this earlier, there's a happy medium, right? And it's going to decrease their risk for injury, and it's going to actually make them a better athlete. If you think playing baseball 12 months out of the year is going to make you better at baseball, you're wrong. You're wrong. Learning how to run on a basketball court and jump and cut and go play football and learn how to tackle somebody and do all this stuff helps you develop as an athlete overall. And that will do more for you in the long run. That will make you a more attractive athlete, a more attractive baseball player than if you were playing 24/7, 365 from when you were 10 years old to when you were now. Everyone's going to be like, oh, well, I know somebody that did that. Okay, you're probably talking about some physical specimen, and we all know those, and there's nothing wrong with that. They were fine. They were fine. So you can argue me on that, but for the general population, for the majority of people, the best thing to do is to have a well-rounded athletic experience to help you develop as a well-rounded athlete early on. Now, okay, when do you specialize? Well, we don't know. But, I mean, there's no, a sophomore year.
Right, there's not a template,
yeah, there's not a template, right? But it's kind of like, that's individual. That's based on the individual, right? If you have a freshman who is done with puberty and is 6'4", and isn't developing anymore, and they're the number 1 ranked recruit in the country, and they just want to play baseball all year, what are you going to do?
Right.
Okay. But if you're a sophomore and you still look like you did when you were in 5th grade, that might not be the best time to just play baseball.
Makes
that
a lot
you
of
still
sense,
have to get it, learn the weight room, find yourself in the weight room, find yourself out on the field, go play a couple other different sports. And when it comes to recruiting, there's no evidence out there saying that, if I'm on 3 travel teams, there's a higher chance that I earn a scholarship than if I was on 1 travel team. Just so you know, I can't believe I didn't. I mean, not to bring myself into this more, but I played baseball at Rutgers. I actually stopped playing travel baseball that summer. I broke my elbow. I didn't play travel baseball in high school. What I did was I was on a really good high school baseball team at Toms River North. I played for a really great coach, Ted Shelmy. I played with a bunch of other guys that were really good. We won. Wow. We won. And look at that. A lot of college coaches came to our games to watch all these guys play. I didn't play travel baseball, but I worked my butt off in the off season in the weight room. I played football. I trained with my hitting coach in the off season a little bit to, stay fresh and do that.
Right.
But I was well-rounded and I was athletic, and I caught the eye of the Rutgers baseball coach during your high school baseball season. That's like rare now, right?
It's kind of crazy.
Right? Yeah. They're going to these showcases and I'm not saying this is bad. There's just a method to the madness, right? And so, to use me as an example, I didn't even play high school travel ball in high school. Now, you say that to our dads. I mean, times have changed, so I'm not even going to go on that. Yeah, I'm not even going to go down that road.
Yeah,
I'm not going down
I think to me, when you talk about playing on 3 different teams, and listen, we can have our opinions about little guys going and doing that. I think the argument for that these days is the exposure. But then it gets back to the question you're talking about, like, when do we specialize? When do we specialize might even coincide with when do we need that exposure. Because if I'm a freshman in high school,
that would be ideal if they coincided, right?
Because to me, if I'm a freshman in high school and like you're saying, it's that one case where I'm done developing, I'm 6'4", I'm 220. Now I can go be a baseball player, and this is the version of myself that I want recruiters to go and watch. But if I'm that sophomore kid who I need a couple more years, maybe a couple more months to develop before I'm done growing, I don't know how beneficial that might be for a coach to come see me unless you're a really toolsy guy in our sport where it's like, listen, he's not done growing, but he's got pop, he's got a good arm. You can argue either side of the fence, but I think
you bring up a good point.
In my eyes, that exposure piece is where the line starts to become
let's talk more about that. You bring up a great point. So what college coach is going to watch a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old on 3 different teams? So you're right. That exposure, when the exposure matters.
Right.
And so finding that point where you just said it, where it coincides, right, is where I think as an individual they need to figure out, right? So if you're like, I'm a freshman and I've got something to bring to the table, and like I can't say any names, but I've worked with patients who are in 8th grade and are freak athletes and are on some of the top teams in the country and are playing on 3 different teams and are being recruited because that's their individual situation.
No, it's not to say that type of athlete doesn't exist.
No, but it's also, I would be shocked if, and I'm using a middle schooler for example, if anyone else on that team is in that kid's position.
Right.
I mean, they're out there, but like we're talking about this one kid on that team. I doubt it. I doubt it. Honestly, this kid being on their team probably helps those kids. But then again, does it matter for them?
Exactly. And
are they grown men or they still look like 5th graders?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This kid plays like a grown man. The exposure matters for him there.
Of course.
There's no template, but and again, here's a whole nother thing we could throw into this. How the recruiting has trickled down to an earlier and earlier age.
It's certainly sped up, yeah.
Right? And so but they're not recruiting everyone when you're in 8th grade. They're not recruiting everyone as a freshman. They're recruiting those guys that they're being recruited in 8th grade and in 9th grade are going to be the dudes that are going to be like the 4-star, 5-star recruits. Right?
It's so interesting how like the trunk of this tree branches off in so many different directions. Because you can see how the recruiting process has sped up and guys or girls at elite levels are making decisions earlier and earlier. People who like, I didn't commit to Rutgers until the summer going into my junior year. Yeah. I was the first guy on my travel team back there that committed. Mm-hmm. These days, if you're the first guy on your travel team that's committing, you're probably starting your freshman year of high school. Yep. So it's definitely sped up. But then, you want to get into the real weeds of it with the transfer portal and the NIL stuff these days. there's so much more mobility these days once you're at that level than there was when we were going through that recruiting process. So I think that what I take away from that is if you continue to develop and you continue to work, the opportunities will present themselves for you, whether you're a guy that's fully developed when you're 13 or you're a guy that isn't fully developed until you're 19 years old. That opportunity will still present itself.
100%.
Another thing that I keep thinking about as you go through that development process is you keep saying the word athlete. And I think sometimes when we talk about specialization, what gets lost is being an athlete doesn't mean being really elite at your sport. It means being at a high level across the board athletically. I got to be good in the weight room. I got to be able to run, jump, and cut the way I might on a basketball court. I got to be able to throw, move laterally, stretch the way I might on a baseball field. I got to be able to rotate, all of this stuff. And I mean, I'm sure none of this is news to you, but I think that's a point that might go over the heads of some folks that are growing up,
parents,
developing now, is being athletic doesn't just mean being really good at this sport that you want to go play in college. It means being an athlete to the full sense of the word.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. And that goes back to what I said about like decreasing your risk of injury if you are just well-rounded physically as an individual. Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, that is what it is. Straight up, being a better athlete just helps you all around. I'm going to say it again. You played basketball. I played football. We played multiple sports. Don't get me started on this. It did probably more for us socially and emotionally than it did physically too. Learning how to operate on multiple teams with different guys on your team and learning how to take criticism from different coaches and operate in that dynamic, right? So if you're only playing baseball, you're learning how to play with that team. If you're playing basketball too, you're learning a different way to communicate with another group of guys on the team or another group of girls on the team, right? And so it does so much more for you. We're talking about like the physical aspect right now too, but it also does so much more for you outside of your physical, outside of the physical domain too.
I couldn't agree more. I think that kind of ties all the pieces together that we've been talking about so far with being able to understand how to be a teammate or how to work well with a bunch of different people. Like we've talked about how that's impacted our lives outside of baseball. On the field, if you can realize how to take the value out of coaching from a football coach, from a basketball coach, from a baseball coach, then you're going to know how to handle every style of coaching that exists. If you know how to get your guys fired up for a football game at halftime, and then you know how to get your guys fired up after somebody catches an alley-oop, and then you know how to get your guys fired up after you just turn an inning-ending double play. Those are three different kinds of teammates that you're understanding how to pull in the right direction. Yeah. And without the exposure to all those different environments, you don't really get the opportunity to learn that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I have a little personal bias for sure, but I couldn't agree more with your point that the exposure to these different areas can be nothing but helpful for an athlete in their development. So
good stuff. That was so good.
Yeah, it's so sick, dude. It's so sick. Let's talk about Waterloo, man. Let's talk about summer ball. I know I get a lot of questions from the guys in here. My summer ball resume in college took me all over the map. I'm super grateful for it on a baseline level, being able to play in Kansas and in the Northwoods all over the Midwest.
You and T-Mac were in Kansas.
And then I went out with Tommy G and Muller to Alaska. Yeah. So shout out to those guys.
Oh, God.
Last time I talked with T-Mac, he was saying, the reason I don't have 1 million followers on the podcast yet is because I haven't had him on to talk about
you got to get him on. So, T-Mac, you're on next.
Shout out to T-Mac. We'll have you on the pod here sooner or later. But let's talk about the Northwoods, because I think if we're going to talk college summer ball, that is the paramount league to get into.
Yeah.
72 games over the course of 80 days. You're on the buses going. The shortest trip we had from Waterloo was 4 hours away. The longest one we had up to Thunder Bay was 12 hours. You're playing every day. You're in hotel rooms with 3 or 4
sharing
guys
beds.
Sometimes, sharing beds, sharing the bus with 40 other dudes.
Sweaty, no showers.
Yeah. Living with a host family. Again, doing stuff in the community for a place that you don't really have a connection to. And still, we can sit back here and look at it and say it was the best. It was a blast being there. So take me through your reflection on the Northwoods League in Waterloo, Iowa.
Oh, man. It was way more than just baseball. Well, yeah, like how you kind of just intro that, way more than just baseball. First of all, we earned the opportunity to go there. It's one of the best leagues in the country, right? It's really demanding. but you get to do what you love every single day. You wake up and just go play. We had 2 off days the whole summer, right?
Right.
So you get dropped off in the middle of nowhere. So that's a life experience, right? You learn how to adapt to a community around you that you know nothing about, with guys that you know nothing about. And that's the best thing about baseball, dude. You can meet a baseball guy from halfway around the world, and you are just boys immediately.
He's the same person as you are.
They're the same person. So we get dropped off there. You meet the guys, who goes to school where, what position you play, where'd you play summer ball last year, how'd you guys do this year. You just click. It's awesome. It's awesome. No one's in competition with each other. You're there to have fun. You're there to get better. Everybody plays. So it's just a great it's just a great time. Here's the thing though, and we're both pretty like, we both handle it like knowing you, you know me, we handle adversity pretty well. My dad dropped me off that first day there, and his flight was out a couple days, and he wanted to stay for our first couple games those nights. And the first night I got there, I went to bed, and my host family actually we were in the basement. I had 2 other players there, one from Georgia, one from Arizona, and there were 2 beds, and I was on the blow up on the floor. I'm like, dude, talk about a grind. But you love that. You embrace it, right?
Right.
I woke up that next morning, and I was supposed to go to the gym, but I called him. I'm like, Dad, can we just get breakfast? Because it was a little bit of a shock for me. Like, we're in Iowa. It's totally different.
It comes at you fast.
The culture's different. And I was like, Dad, can we go get, I'm like, Dad, can we get breakfast? And he knows me. Like, I handle these situations well. So for me to call him, he was like, oh, damn. I was just a little shook.
Yeah.
I was like, we're really going to do this. We're about to go, like, nose deep into this whole summer and just stick it out here. And so, you know, I talked to him for a little bit. We had breakfast. We ended up we went to the field that night. And then I saw the packed stadium under the lights. And, you know, we don't get that here at Rutgers. We don't get that here in the Northeast when it comes to baseball. To play under the lights in, like, basically like a minor league stadium with all the amenities and the clubhouse. The clubhouse was so much fun.
So sick.
I was like, oh, I think they finished. There was fireworks that night.
Yep.
One of the first nights there was fireworks.
I think your first weekend there was 4th of July.
It was 4th of July, right? So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a blast. This is going to be a freaking blast. They turned the lights off of the stadium after the game was over, and then fireworks went up, and everybody was cheering. There was music, and I'm like, I'm not going to want to go home now.
Right.
But no, and to touch on a little bit, yeah, I'm going to try to hit everything you mentioned. So the community, right? These fans, the community of Waterloo, Iowa, for the summer months, this was their life.
100%.
Which that is stuff you see out of like a movie, right? You think of like The Sandlot, all those classic baseball movies where the summertime, the community just like rallies around the local baseball team. We were living a movie. We'd wear our jerseys out, we'd wear our gear out, and they would know us. All the host families were in the stands. The host families knew the other host families. They knew the other player. It was like one big family. It was so much fun to be part of a community like that. And then we were involved in the community, right? So I remember there was a couple church events that
they had like a farmer's market there. They had like a field day for the elementary school
for the kids.
Yep.
I remember that. That's what I was thinking of. We did all those events, and we're wearing our jerseys, signing autographs for the kids, taking pictures with the other fans and the host families and the kids. It was kind of like being a small celebrity in a small town, which was like, we're just there hanging out. We're just playing ball.
That's one of the first things I say when guys will ask me about summer ball is that in those communities, the rest of the year, they don't have the type of excitement that they do when the summer ball team picks up again. So everyone in the community, from the kids that go to school there, from the families that are hosting, to the families that just live in town, in the summertime, those people in Waterloo were there for the Waterloo Bucks. And like you're saying, it was sick to feel like a celebrity for those couple months.
It was awesome. And you didn't want to leave, man. I was like emotional leaving.
Yeah.
Like we met, shout out to Angelo Altavilla. He better watch this. And I I hated you that first week. I'm busting his ball. I love him. He was the shortstop for Nebraska, and when we played, we played Nebraska and stuff, and they kicked one of my years. They kicked their ass, and Angelo kicked ass and did great and stuff. So I was like, that a-hole or whatever. We became freaking best friends. I love that dude.
He's a dog.
I freaking love that dude. He's a dog. He's a grinder. He's a great athlete. He's one of the best guys. And just meeting guys like that was so much fun. I was like upset leaving that summer. Me and Angela will still touch base with each other and talk to each other and mess around. Actually, he hit up Kevin and me the other day, or Blummy and me the other day when Rutgers was playing Nebraska. So like we still keep in touch. Yep. I was like upset leaving Waterloo because I would miss these guys so much and miss the fun that we had. How special it became. Dude, Waterloo, Iowa, like, not to be like corny, but like we'll always have a place in our heart. Like how awesome is that?
No doubt about it.
Right?
I have a great Angelo Altavilla story that I tell all the time. So we're playing the Duluth Huskies team.
Uh-huh.
This summer, they were coached by Jock Peterson's younger brother. He was their head coach. He coached third base for them. He fiery guy, to say the least. He was always in it with the umpires. He was always in it with the opposing team. For whatever reason, we had developed some type of rivalry with this team.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember to start that game, our guy comes out, or we're at Duluth. So their guy comes out, hits our leadoff batter. Gets through the inning. Our guy comes out, hits their leadoff batter. So now everybody's high tension in the dugouts.
Baby, it's hot.
Both dugouts have been warned. I'm the first guy out of the bullpen. First and second with nobody out. Their leadoff guy was batting like 480 for the summer. It's 3-2. I threw a wild pitch behind him for the third ball, totally by accident.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the stare down from this guy. I look over to Angelo, and he's glaring at me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And then your guy from Georgia that you're living with, Christian Griffin, from the dugout. I hear him from the dugout say, if we're going to miss in, we're going to miss in. And I geared up and threw a fastball as hard as I could for the inside corner, trying to strike him out. And it squares this kid up between the numbers. Boom. Unintentional, I promise. Unintentional. But it hit him. Both dugouts had been warned. And I'm thinking, I got to get tossed. That's the rule.
Yeah.
So Coach Peterson's coming out at me on the mound from the third base coach's box. And he says, he's got to be gone. You got to be out of here. What are you doing hitting my guy? Angelo steps in front of him and says, get back in the coach's box, you pigeon-toed so-and-so.
Angelo was waiting for that.
And I was like, here we go.
Oh,
and
my
just
gosh.
like that, tempers
settled.
He went back to the coach's box. Umpire went back behind home plate. Next guy pops out, innings over, and I get to pitch a couple more innings. So
that's awesome.
In that moment, my head's swirling. I had no idea what to do, and Angelo's like, I got it taken care of. Don't worry about this guy. And it was one of the sickest experiences I had.
Angelo loved that, bro. That's why we hated him when we played him at Rutgers, but we loved him when we were
100%.
on the same
Good
team
guy
together.
to have on your team.
Good guy to have your back. Always have your back.
Minnesota hockey guy growing up, right? So he was all business.
All business.
Not a guy you'd want to mess with.
He loved chirping Jock too, or Peter. Tiger, right? Was
Tiger Peterson. Yep.
Tiger. He loved chirping him. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was sick out there, man. And I mean, we could go all day long with the stories, but the one that has to be addressed is 5-hour rain delay. Game's supposed to start at 7 p.m. and we don't start until midnight.
This was all over foul pole.
Yeah, all over foul pole sports. Getting games canceled is a difficult thing to come by in the Northwoods League just because of how packed the schedule is. Like we said, with 72 games in 80 days, so we end up putting the tarp back on at least 4 times that night. I think we played 2 pitches at the top of the first, and then we ended up with a 5-hour rain delay, and we didn't start the game till midnight. And then the guy for, I think it was Eau Claire we were playing, comes out throwing 100 miles an hour at midnight.
Dude, this is like the story. This is like the memory of the summer. You are so right. This is it, man. Dude, we went out and rolled it out and rolled it back at least 4 times. At least 4 times. And we're drenched. Dude, do you remember the one time, maybe like the second or third time we rolled it out, guys were... Yeah, they were naked and they were going.
Guys are doing
slip and slide,
tarp slides in their sliding shorts. Yeah,
that was so much fun.
It was a great time.
And you know it was great because we were in the clubhouse, which was so much fun, hanging out with the guys just for hours, waiting to see when we play. And the concession stands end up closing. It's 11 o'clock, and they gave us all the food. So we all played, but we all played with like 10 pounds of food in our stomach because for the last 4 hours we were just eating hot dogs and hamburgers in the dugout or in the clubhouse.
Couple of things I remember from that. To start the game, there's nobody left in the stands. Like the the promotions guys down on the field doing like guess that
No
Bucks
one's
player
there.
on
Yeah.
the scoreboard, and there's nobody playing. He's just doing it himself. All the players are like sitting in the stands and on top of the dugout between innings or when their guys are hitting. And I remember Miles Emerson from
Dude, you got the
Cal
best memory.
Poly takes a G-hack in the first inning off this guy throwing 100 and spins his legs around, topples over onto the field, helmet falls off. Couldn't have set the tone better for a game that we picked up at midnight after a 5-hour rain delay. And then later on in that game, it's funny because the hardest pitch I ever threw in my life was at 2 o'clock in the morning in the ninth inning of that game. Christian Griffin again. So before I got on the mound, I have been in the press box doing play-by-play with our guy Thomas for the first 8 innings.
Great dude.
I see the pitching coach, Travis, old West Texas guy, come into the stands. He waves at me. He says, "Go to the pen." I head down to the pen. I get loose. I come in the game for the ninth. I'm 0-2 on the batter with 2 outs, nobody on. Christian Griffin again from the dugout says, "One time for the scouts." There's 0 people in the stand. So I said, all right, fine. I let it rip.
yeah.
Scoreboard says 92. It
Let's
probably
go.
actually came out 87. But I got that. And then
Hell
Big
yeah.
Noochie's coming out of the dugout with a big
Let's
chest
go.
bump for me at the end of the
That
video.
was awesome.
So, a lot of fun in the Northwoods. I mean, really, we could go all day. But
Dude, I gotta mention, didn't play that well that summer, but that guy that was throwing 100, I faced him that night and I fouled him off. Let's go.
contact, baby,
yeah.
contact. That guy was legit. I think he played at Evansville University. I'm sure he's playing pro ball somewhere.
He got the All-Star game that he got. I'm pretty sure he got like signed by the Yankees, like some sort of like
Yeah, no joke.
contract. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
summer.
was cool to see just the amount of guys that would go there looking for like a draft opportunity.
Yeah.
And then some team would have a scout there, and some
Yeah.
guy would hit 97, 98
Yeah.
and be signed playing for the Guardians or for the
Yeah,
A's or
yeah.
something the next day. So it was pretty sick. I mean, outside of just these stories alone and how sick the life experiences are, there's a ton of value that can be derived from summer ball on the field, in the community, whatever. Just chopping it up, making memories with your buddies. So,
Learning how to develop relationships with other people from outside of where you're from, that's so special. That goes with you the rest of your life. Learning how to be dropped in the middle of nowhere with people that you don't know, and then you walk away like they're your brothers or
yeah,
your
with
family.
35 new guys you got behind you.
I'm sure. Has your host family probably reached out to you since you've left there once?
All the time.
Right?
All the time.
How awesome is that, man? It's special. It's really special. Like you said, it's way beyond baseball. It's really special.
I think to add a Jersey twist back into that, I'll throw one more story in there. I remember the first night I stayed with the Paulos, Cindy, Greg, Sarah, awesome people. I mean, we're in touch as often as we can be and think about you guys all the time. So big shout out to the Paulo family in Waterloo, Iowa. But I remember I'm going to bed the first night. Cindy, being awesome the way she was, goes, "I'll cook you breakfast in the morning. What do you want?" I said, "Well, back home, we normally do like a bacon, egg, and cheese bagel, ketchup, whatever. That's what we work with." She goes, "No problem." So I wake up in the morning. There's a plate, bagel with cream cheese already spread, bacon and eggs on the side.
That's sweet.
And I was like, "Cindy, I love you." I was
Dude,
like,
you
"Thank
guys
you
ate
so
well
much for
over there.
breakfast." But in Jersey, this is not how we do things. We put the bacon, egg, and cheese on the bagel, everything. So she was like blown away. I guess bagel sandwiches aren't a thing out there in the Midwest the way they are here. I mean, it's an institution out in our parts. But my family comes out for that 4th of July weekend, and my dad goes, "What am I bringing for the Paulos?" I said, because I'm living with Welshie from Hamilton, Trenton, the pork roll capital of the world, have Mr. Welsh bring out a couple rolls of pork roll. And to see people who have never experienced pork roll for the first time was like awesome. It was so sick. Like, we came home from one of our games and we're having pork roll, egg, and cheese for dinner, and we're teaching them how we do it in Jersey. And it was pretty sick just to see how worlds collide and the cultures can mesh with each other. It was pretty awesome to take away.
And for your viewers out there, it's pork roll.
It's pork roll.
Yeah,
it's pork roll.
I just need to say that.
Yeah, we don't have to get into that argument at all. I mean, yeah, listen, like the Northwoods and summer ball are the place for the memories and for the experiences and for all these learning things that we've touched on so far. And man, just the reflection brings a smile to my face, man, and all that stuff. But getting back into the PT stuff here. So I guess from an up and coming guy, like so far in your career, who have been the coolest athletes that you've been able to work with, whether it's on the pro level, college level, whatever?
That's a great question. For certain reasons, I actually I can't do that because that would imply that they were a patient of mine. I love you.
Fair enough. So then let's
here's
switch
the thing.
gears.
Hit me.
Let's switch gears.
I would love to tell you.
You have a couple of cousins.
You have
a couple of cousins that are really legit athletes.
Okay.
So how cool is it for you to be able to work with them in their careers?
So I've got three younger cousins. One's graduating college. She played field hockey. She's done. But the two youngest out of the whole clan, the youngest is an rising sophomore in high school. He plays quarterback, and then the one above him, she is a rising sophomore in college, and she plays lacrosse. And they come from their father played football at Penn State and is a physical specimen. Their mother was an athlete, so their genes are kind of insane. And the two of them are pretty ridiculous athletes. You could just look at them and they look like specimens. But they're great athletes, and I've been really lucky to be a part of their training over the last 3, 4, 5 years, helping the one get better as a football player, as a quarterback, and the other one helping her get better, faster, and stronger as a lacrosse athlete. She had a torn ACL about a couple years ago, so I sort of involved with that process. She worked with one of the best physical therapists I know, Zach Fendrick, who's now a physical therapist at Monmouth University, and he did a great job with her. She made a smooth transition to college. She played some this year. She's working for a starting spot this coming year. And this summer, I was lucky enough to basically create her entire training program. Now, as a sports performance or a performance physical therapist, that's what I do. That's my passion, and I loved working with her to create this awesome program. It's a speed and strength program. She's going to be lifting some weights. She's going to be doing a lot of running over the course of the next couple months while she's home here during the summer, helping her get ready for her fall ball season. She goes to East Stroudsburg, and actually it's a D3 school out in Pennsylvania, and they are consistently like a top 5 program. I think the year before she committed, they were national champs. So she's part of a great program there, and she's looking to make an impact on that team next year. So I'll catch up with you in 2 months. Those times better be down, that weight better be up. So she's going to be it's great practice for me. It's something I've actually learned a lot about over the past 18 weeks when I was working with that resilient performance physical therapy. The guys there really taught me how to program and how to coach and develop the style of program I created for her. So I owe a lot to them. She owes it a lot to them. But that was great practice for me. I learned a lot, and hopefully she will reap the benefits of this training program. Zach is the youngest, is the guy I mentioned that is going to be working for a starting spot in his high school team. He grew up playing football, baseball, and basketball. He gave up baseball last year because basketball, he actually could jump through the roof. He trains with 2 brilliant strength coaches, Anthony Dorsey and Carmine Agostino out of Iron House Performance Center in Farmingdale. And he'll be able to dunk because of them in the next few months. The kid has...
And he's a sophomore?
Dude, he's got bounce.
Sick.
But they know what they're doing over there. So he's playing basketball. He's playing football. Football is his love, right? He's a quarterback. And so I've been really involved with, he's a guy. He plays quarterback. He played baseball. He's like, I've got a little brother, Joey, but this kid, my boy Zach's like another younger brother to me and Joey. So we've been really involved with his training over the past 4 or 5 years. He's working with the same quarterback coach, Kevin Stockoff, that I worked with in high school out of Point Pleasant, New Jersey. So he's got that taken care of. He's got a strength and conditioning taken care of. And I've kind of just fit in and stepped in when I needed to, helped coordinate kind of a lot of that along with his dad. And he's going to start the camp circuit this summer, probably go to a couple like a Monmouth, Princeton, Rutgers, probably hit some of those local camps right now. But the goal is to earn that starting spot. And he's really been working his tail off. But a little bit about like what I kind of was involved in. When I was learning, about arm care, and when he was playing baseball, which just transitioned into him continuing that when he became a quarterback. I was really involved with a lot of his arm care early on, helping him develop his arm strength, take care of his arm. It was all stuff that I was learning. I was kind of like testing out on him. It was all good stuff. I learned this stuff from a lot of my mentors, a lot of great guys, and so he was lucky. He was getting it right from them. I would just, whatever I would learn, I would give right to him, and I would try and help him as much as I could. All the information I learned, I would be like, okay, how can I incorporate this into Zach's program? I know he's lifting, he's doing this. What else can we do to augment his training? But now he's got like a full training program now, and they're going to start 7-on-7s. It's June now. They're going to start 7-on-7s this month, and we'll see how the rest of it goes. But it's been an awesome experience that my uncle has let me be involved with a lot of their training, and it's helped me as a coach, as a trainer, as a physical therapist, hone my skills.
That's awesome to see how those pieces fit together, where at the same time that your cousins need some guidance in continuing to strength train, continuing to rehab from past injuries, at the same time that you're going through this stuff from the professional. And it's pretty cool timing that everything worked out.
Yeah.
I think what's awesome for me to see there is I just asked you about what it's been like working with a couple of your cousins, and you're able to touch these bases on so many things that fall under the umbrella of the physical therapy field that you're in. So with this knowledge and with everything that you care about in your field, what's your dream job, right? You're done with school. You've completed all of these things, and you're starting your residency now. When you see Dr. Nooch 5 years from now, what are you doing? How do you know at this point in your life? I'm sure things will change, but if you could look right now and say, I will have made it when I get to here, what's that look like for you?
That's gonna go back to like the intersection of physical therapy and sports performance that we've talked about. The majority of this podcast is I, as an ex-athlete, as a sports physical therapist, right? As a PT that has worked with pro and college athletes, high school athletes. I don't know right now if the pro sports or college sports is really where I see myself long term. Where I really think I see myself is in a facility like this, a performance facility, a facility where you can train your sport, right? We got your batting cages back here, your pitching mounds, stuff like that. And I'm not just talking about baseball, like all sports, right, ideally, right? But a performance facility that also has physical therapy in-house, where you can do both. And that's important. That's really important for the quality of care that these athletes receive, because PT and training are one. They're not different. PT is just training in an injured state or in an acute state. Right. So it's a continuum. So to have that in one house and be able to do both of those with your athletes, I shouldn't even say both of those. I just said it's one thing. To be able to do that with your athlete, that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want. I'm very passionate about bridging that gap between PT and performance, and to be part of a facility, whether I'm a clinic director, whether I own it, or whether I'm working for an incredible company. In that setting, that's where I envision myself. That's what I see myself doing. And just a couple examples out there, right? So I for years I worked at Elite Physical Therapy down in Tinton Falls, which was under the same roof as RIPT, Reach Your Potential Training. And the three owners there, Bobby Smith, Sharon, and Stephen Bade are incredible performance trainers, physical therapists, strength coaches, and they have both under that one roof. And they raised me, honestly, in this field. They showed me that model and how you could do both, how you could treat and train, and they do a phenomenal job there. And then in addition to them, I've mentioned Resilient a million times. Those guys up in Chatham, up in North Jersey. I was telling you a little before the show that Resilient is housed within the Annex. The Annex is a baseball performance facility. Right. And they do the same thing there. They've got their athletes that they're treating, and they've got their athletes that they're training, all under one roof. And so it really just provides for like a seamless transition from treatment to training, and it just helps deliver the best experience for the athlete there. So those two models or those two companies that I just mentioned, something similar to that is what I envision for myself in the future down the road. That's the dream. That is, I confidently say that that's probably the goal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt that you'll make it there, brother. So before we wrap up here, tell the people, give a couple shout outs to people that have helped you along the way outside of the ones that you've mentioned, anybody that's important to you, and tell the people how they can reach you on social media and where they can find you.
Well, dude, now that school's finally over, I owe a huge thank you. And words don't do anything, because one day I'll repay them for all the support that they've given me. But my parents, my mom and dad, who have been there all throughout my high school years as an athlete, my college years as a student athlete, and then helping support me through graduate school, they have been my rocks throughout this entire thing. And nothing that I've done would have been possible without my parents. They came to, they barely, as you know, right? You grew up in a family just as supportive with the same values. They never missed a game. They traveled all over the country to see me, and they've helped me move into New York, I'm moving to Philly. Like, I owe everything to my parents. And then last but not least, I didn't mention him, but all the sports stuff we've talked about, my grandpa, who passed away a couple of years ago, who has probably had the biggest influence on my life as a whole. He helped raise me. He's a Hall of Fame high school football coach in New Jersey. He won multiple state championships. He coached, I'll actually add a story real quick. He coached my uncle. He coached my father, who I mentioned my uncle went on to play at Penn State. My father played at Rutgers. Before my parents were dating, my dad was playing for my uncle, that's going to be confusing. My dad was playing for my grandpa at Toms River High School South. My dad kicked a game-winning field goal to win the state championship for my grandpa. That's before my parents. Man, how crazy is that? So then he goes on, years later, goes on to marry the coach's daughter, right? So my grandpa, being the coach he was, and just the incredible guy he was, has helped shape everything that I do as an athlete, as a person, as a student, as a person. None of this would be possible without my parents and my grandpa. So I owe them the biggest thank yous. So shout out to them. I love them. I'm on Instagram, Carmen Sclafani .dpt. That was a new addition after I graduated.
You earned it.
Instagram, Carmen Sclafani .dpt. On Twitter, Carmen Sclafani. Very active still on Facebook. I know that the younger kids out there might not be using Facebook nowadays, but I'm also very active at Facebook at Carmen Sclafani. And then lastly, just keep an eye out, Temple football over the next year or so, and Temple sports, because I'll be out there on the sideline for a lot of those games. So can I say thanks to you now? Because this has been so much fun, man. This has been, I don't want to go. I know you got something to go at 4:30, but this has been so much fun. You got to do more. We got a lot of the guys we just mentioned. You got to get them on there, because they got to talk. We've got so much stuff to talk about. It's been so much fun. I think we've touched on some awesome topics today. We got into some details, that's for sure.
No doubt.
We reminisced on some stuff. We talked about some really hot topics. So thanks, E. This was a freaking blast, man. You're the man.
Nooch, it's been my pleasure, man. I can't thank you enough for going over this stuff and for sharing your knowledge and letting me go back through the memory bank a little bit and getting into some of the weeds of the stuff that we went through. So yeah, man, like I said, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thanks for taking me under your wing and showing me the ropes when I was a little guy there on campus on the banks, and thanks for sharing all the knowledge you have and for being here and joining me. So best of luck in your endeavors.
Thanks, man.
And thanks again for hopping on the show. And for Carmen Sclafani, I'm your host, Eric Reardon, for the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. We're signing off.
3 strikes, you're out at the